I'm ready. Here we go. All right. Hey, everyone. Glad you can all make it. We have a big crowd today. And I love to do these YouTube demos because, you know, in a certain way, when I teach, it stays on forever. Like it's something like a milestone that you can do that years can go by, and the knowledge that you share, it's going to be there all the time. That for me is a great honor. And the last YouTube video we did went viral. We got like, I think 135,000 views. So hopefully this does the same thing. So please tell your friends and your art buddies to drop by and watch this. I'm sure some of you belong to art associations and organizations. We got here Jude with us. Say hello, Jude.
Hi, my friends. So glad to be back with you all today.
All right. Well, let's get started because, you know, it's an afternoon here and we don't want to keep this that long. So, trees. And the reason I selected this today, it's because I feel it's the most important thing that appears in all landscapes. And there's no such thing as a landscape without a tree unless you're talking about a seascape. So I'm going to teach you some really neat techniques about that. So let's take a look at what I already have here. Oh, let me just tell you a little bit myself. My name is Johannes Vloothuis. I always forget to boast a little bit myself. I go straight to the point. I work for Artist Network. Artist Network is the leader of fine art education for decades. They have magazines in the stores, and they have tons of materials, and I'm very honored to be teaching for them. I've done about probably 3,500 paintings myself, and my knowledge basically is based on all the reverse engineering of artists over all the years, plus my experience. So you're in good hands. I have a lot of answers, so go ahead and ask away. I'm watching your videos. I mean your text, but Jude will watch it much better than me. Okay. Okay. Let's go. Now, if you look at the video that's on this, I mean the tree that's on the screen right now, it's very hard to do an isolated tree, but I have a technique where you, in order to make it a shape work, you want this to come and look different on, hold on, just, there it is. You want to take an imaginary line down the middle of this form and make sure that the two sides are dramatically different. So in this case, this is not a good symbol. I would have to modify it. So what's important is that don't fall for the idea that because you see a tree that you just copy it. Okay? So basically this is going to be a step-by-step. So if I were to reverse this, and you don't see a big difference when I reverse it, you know that it's not a good form. See, it's really the only thing that's different here is that this is bulging out. So I'm going to have to go in there and edit that in a different way. Now, there's two ways I can do this. I'm going to teach you a really neat trick for drills. I'll take some burnt sienna. You're going to like this. This is for practice. And I'm going to dip it in some mineral spirits, grab some of this burnt sienna. Okay, I'll put the palette up in a minute. We don't need it right now. So I'm just going to scrub that in there. And instead of painting the positive shape, we're going to paint it in the negative shape by wiping out what we don't want.
Is this oils, Joe?
Yeah, there's going to be demos in watercolor too. I'm just starting out with oils. Okay, so there we have that. That's a nice color, isn't it? So you can take out a cloth or some paper towel, whatever you want to do. And if you crumple it like this, instead of trying to use a pen or a pencil, as soon as you start to draw something, it will appear that what's going to happen is you're going to tap into your left brain and you're going to do things that you did as a child or bad habits that you've formed for many years. So the idea is to create this form with different tools. So if I go like this, clean it out, this very blunt piece of paper really won't let me create a symmetrical shape. Hopefully it won't. Anyway, if I do, you tell me. So see, that's another thing that you can do is actually paint it using the same system. So there's two ways to do this drill. You can take your mineral spirits and you can also create a form like this. Again, if you use the small tools, you're going to tap into your left brain. So you can actually create a general form like this and paint from that. So you practice both ways, so you train yourself to think in both ways. Okay, so I'm going to put the palette on. So my face is going to be gone. Unfortunately, I can't put two cameras on at the same time. And we're going to transform. There we go, and this goes clockwise. Okay, I'm not putting the color initials because I'm going to put my watercolor palette up there and it will be confusing. But I'll call out the colors as I grab them. Well, here, let me just finish this here so it doesn't look like I left it halfway. So just to give you an idea that you can just crumple your paper towel. Because you can actually build on top of this.
So you have one example where you're wiping out, and the second example is where you're painting in the positive shape.
Correct, but with a very blunt tool, because that way you won't tap into preconceived ideas and muscle memory of how you used to do things before. You should try this. There's a lot of freedom in this. Of course, it's the same thing as using a real big brush, but hey, it's working. So that would be your foundation of your silhouette, and you can work on top of that. I'm going to do it in both cases because I'm already liking this the way it looks right now. All right. That's pretty easy, isn't it?
You have two very different sides on that guy.
I do. Yeah, so if you take an imaginary line down the middle and you compare both sides, you sure can see it's completely different on both sides. That is correct.
And you also have, instead of painting one leaf at a time, you're painting 100 leaves in each little dab that you're doing with that.
I actually like this. It looks like I like the way it broke up here. All right, so there's different ways to mix greens. Some people use Prussian blue plus all the ochres. Or the most popular one though is ultramarine blue that many artists use to start. So they take a lemon yellow, a primary yellow. It doesn't have to be lemon yellow, just any primary yellow. And then you add the ultramarine blue to that. That normally gives you one of the best greens. But I like to tone it down, so you put a little bit of red in there. Now, in general, trees should be darker than the ground. Okay, so let's see. Now, I have a clock technique where you go 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 11, 10, 9, 8. 3. What am I doing on that side? Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to start with little clumps starting at 12 o'clock. That's a little bit too green for me. Tone it down a little bit with red. All right. There we go. So every time I reach for another color, I'm sort of changing the flavor a little bit. So you think about a jar of martini olives that they're going to change all the time when they're close together in the same color, but some of them are more red, some of them are more green. So I'm sort of following the silhouette that I just did. Note how I'm using the edge of my brush like this, so I can go like that. And
Joe is belly brushing again.
What?
You're belly brushing
Yeah,
again.
well, I'm using the side now. Then you can just jab like that. Boom. And then you maybe throw in a little bit of sap green along with it. So you can see subtle fluctuations of color. And I like to do a lot of these little things that stick out at the edge, like little Greek islands. Now you can follow along if you got your palette there. It's pretty easy. Yeah, so get yourself a jar of martini olives and put them in front of you and look at the colors, and they'll be similar to this. That's the way most artists paint their foliage, by the way, with that color combination. Now, even so, it's going to be hard to do a one tree silhouette that's going to work.
Kathleen is asking, at this stage, is there a focus on a light source?
No. Oh, yeah. I want to tell you this. What I do is a little bit unorthodox. Many artists, they start from the very dark and they build on top of that. But I feel that the painting gets muddy that way. So the best way for me is to judge the overall value, which is probably on a 1 to 10, a value 6, which is dark but past the mid-dark, so that the ground can be your 5. So you can see that I'm instead of putting a dark on top, I will put some highlights on it, but I'm not going to build a whole thing in the darks. Now that was because years before we didn't have the alkyds that you can go in there and just work right on top. But sometimes you have to let it dry and come back in a couple of days after and then put the painting on. So, but now with these alkyds, you can just go right on top very easily. So I'm going to put a little bush here. See now, see how I'm following the clock? My strokes are going like they're about 1.5 inches. Boom, 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 boom. You don't go all the way up like that. You start like this, little inch, like this. Do it on a separate. Okay, like this. You go one clump like that, and then you do another one elsewhere. I don't like to actually attach them together that much, and that automatically will get you your foliage. See? Okay, I have a step-by-step little thing there that I'm going to give you, but right now, okay, so that's step number 1 is to judge the overall value. In this case, again, most professional artists, if you check them out, they're going to go a little bit darker than what you would normally see. One thing that you don't want is to have the highlight of the tree the same value as your ground. That you don't want. Okay.
Joe says to put your branches and tree trunks in last. Do not judge your tree until you are done with it by adding them. So right now he's just doing leaf clusters.
Yeah, and I hope our voice is about the same. Tell us if Jude is a little bit louder. Now this is the unorthodox part. What I like to do is to do the negative painting, which means to go in there and start to carve out the 3D form. And there you can get pretty dark if you want. Now in this case, obviously I'm indicating that the light's coming from the left. Now during my paint-alongs, which are every 3 first Saturdays of the month, I don't just do one little thing like this. They're always the entire paintings. That we do. We do full paintings together. I have quite a few here sitting around in my studio. Now, when you're putting in your darks, you want to sort of like connect them. It's a little bit too... Oh, so I went the other way. All right. And pretty much the best idea is to go like probably 2/3 light, 1/3 dark, or the other way around, depending what your needs are. Obviously, if you want a darker kind of painting with more drama, then you go for the 2/3 dark and 1/3 light. So just keep counting that. And basically, I'm just putting it on the side here. And I'm using purple, I think right out of the tube, with a dirty brush, because that way it mixes in with the green and it creates a clean dark. Okay, so now the next step is very simple. Just take the to put the tree trunks, look for your gaps. So start right over here. And I think there we go. We pretty much have a tree. It would survive. It's just like that. But if you want, you can add a little bit. I like to go a little bit extra mile and add a little bit of a highlight on it. Just a second. Okay.
Kathleen is asking, will the shadow of the tree be a different value than the shadows within the tree?
What a great question that is. Yeah, because if you're going to have the ground plane, so I tend to have the ground plane always lighter than the vertical plane. So let's do that. So when you look at it on the grayscale, you can really see the difference between the ground and the tree itself. You know, who asked the question? What's your name? Kathleen? Yeah. It's hard to, you don't have a lot of values basically you have just a few to work with. So sometimes they're going to cross over like that, but that's not such a big deal. But I would say, I think if you can make it a little bit lighter, but I think you're about right. Something like that. Then if I put the shadow here. See, the great thing about these live classes is that you guys can ask live and even do requests. So let me see if we just go a little bit darker here. No, it's a little bit lighter. Yeah, you want to be conscious of it where you don't want that, unless you can connect it, you don't really want that to be the same value. Okay, now I'm going to put the highlights on it. You can leave it like that if you want to. Many artists do. But we can put a few touches. So I'm going to take the primary yellow again. Same thing with ultramarine blue. And a little touch of red. Some more white on it. I'm just adding green to it for quickness. Okay, so we can go. It's not sticking on there yet.
Joe, is anyone here from Artist Network yet?
Yes, Genevieve is here, and there's somebody that's typing.
Your students are having great difficulty getting into Artist Network. They're saying it's just buffering. It won't go through. I had a similar problem.
You mean the site?
Yeah, they cannot get into Artist Network to get here to the YouTube. I'm getting messages up the wazoo.
Well, you know what? Then do this, please. Just copy the link on YouTube and give it to them directly.
I am, but one by one, there must be hundreds others that are having a similar problem.
Maybe because a lot of people are trying to log in at the same time.
That
I
could
don't
be,
know.
but there's a problem at Artist Network that I can't
Well,
solve.
I think she's hearing you.
Okay.
Let me confirm that.
Okay.
I'm ready. Genevieve, are you there?
All right.
Oh.
Hey, everyone. Glad you can
What's
all
going on
make it.
here?
We have a big crowd today, and I
I'm getting
love
a
to
double
do
feed
these
here.
YouTube demos because,
Hold on.
you know, in a certain way, when I teach, it's
Yeah, Genevieve says they're working on it.
Like, it's
Okay.
Okay.
something
Thank
like
you, Genevieve.
a milestone that you can do that
All right.
years can go by, and the knowledge.
Okay. All right.
They're working on it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll continue here. Okay, so now put this on there. And just a little bit here and there will do the job. Don't go too far in the highlights. Remember, keep your dark. You don't want this value to match that value down here. Now, oils will always give you some kind of like a shimmer, or what do you call it? Yeah, it shines because of the lights. Once it dries, it becomes matte. Now, what's very important is that you leave all these little dangling leaves on the side, but do them more on the side that it goes towards the inner part of the painting, not so much at the side, because you don't want to attract the viewers on the right-hand side. Okay. Hey, it looks like there's a little bit of sun behind there, Jude.
I'm sorry, Joe, I'm on Facebook.
Yeah,
You'll
I
have
understand.
to
Forget it.
watch the
Never
chat,
mind.
please.
Never mind. I forgot that. Okay. So there's sample number 1. Let's do this one here, but a different color now. We'll do 2 oils and 2 watercolors. Just 1 second.
Ellen is asking, how would you add the sky?
So we're going to make this into like an aspen tree or cottonwood. Sweating here. I got to take off my jacket. Okay.
Joe, did you turn the sound off? They're getting several
Just
no
a few
sound.
seconds. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so I'm going to clean my palette.
Okay. Somebody asked how do you add the sky?
Oh, yes. You normally people put it on first, but that's not necessary because let me give you, now that it came out, let me tell you why. Because you have a second chance to carve into your shape and correct it. So let's say this is too round for me. I'll just do a little piece here. See, again, that's the beauty of the live classes, because then you can just ask me anything and I can demonstrate it. I know it can get a little bit messy, but it's okay if you get some of that tree into the sky because it creates a soft edge anyway. So I can do it like
And why
that
would I want a soft edge in my trees?
because, well, in oils it sort of like happens automatically, but in watercolor it's definitely important because whatever is soft is going to go behind, it recedes, and whatever's hard edge is going to come forward. But then you can see here I got a second chance to go in and make the corrections. See? It's a little bit wobbly now, but that was the idea behind it. Okay, so let's do this one a different color. The cheerful ones, those yellow orange are very cheerful trees. I'm using a scraper here. You can see me clean up my palette very easily. All right. Now, if you look at the form again, you can see tons of little teeny weeny, like little indentations here. That separates all those leaves. You can ignore all of those and just pretend that they're just melting together. Okay, so here we go with the next one. So I'm going to take my cadmium yellow. And again, I'm going to judge the average color, the average value, which is like this one over here. Oops, that one's gone.
You already have some highlights on that beautiful beginning.
that little thingy there, right?
They're pretty cool. Kathleen is asking, while making sure that the grass and leaves do not match, does that apply to forestry type paintings as well?
That the green, what was that again?
Evidently, you had said to make your green grass different than the green
value. Yeah, the value, and if possible, the color. So this over here is warmer at this side. So it really establishes your because in real life the greenery here in this tree can be the same value as your grass, but then it creates a stacking effect. So it's always a better idea to have your trees darker than your overall grass, unless you want to create a certain impression where the sun's hitting something directly at 3 o'clock from the clock. In other words, a sunset, and then your cast shadows over the grass, and this gets a lot of light. But those are exceptions.
So, Kathleen, yes, in all types of paintings, you want to make sure that they're different.
Okay, so here
Plus,
again,
it helps the viewer know what is tree and what is grass.
okay, so we're going to use this sample here.
Okay, so see, Joe, how Joe was going in with the sky to correct his shapes that he didn't like, and he would also use his finger or his thumb to smudge some of those edges so that some were hard and some were soft.
See, I like this jabbing technique is really cool because you go like that, and it creates the you want that broken up kind of impression to the foliage. And you can leave a little bit of that burnt sienna showing through. That just shows that they're dry leaves. I use liquid, Carlene, for softening the paint, because it also starts to harden the paint within about an hour. So I can easily put like foam on top of a blue wave, or if I want to add more white clouds to the sky. See, now I'm just tickling that. A little bit of orange
The
in there.
shape on the top of those trees, Joe, is there a particular shape you're aiming for?
Well, I would like people to think in senses of pizza, little pizza slices. So pretend you get a pizza box and you pull out the slices, like you open the box, and the slices go into different directions. So think in a sense that you want to create what I really coined this, and it's a big deal. I can't say everything during this YouTube demo, but during the classes I invented something that's revolutionary. That's why I get thousands and thousands of students. The same students have been with me for a decade, because I came up with something that's called the melodic or graceful line. What that means that I don't really think necessarily about trees or rocks. I think more about shapes. I call them trees because I'm demonstrating to you. But the whole secret is that you want to create this kind of roller coaster ride called the graceful line with a big entrance here. So if I were to rotate this 90 degrees, you would end up with like a roller coaster. That is the secret to trees. It's not so much what you're doing inside, it's what you do on the contour. So yeah, I'm just going to let some of that burnt sienna bleed through. Create some nice dark areas. Wow, that came out really cool. And I can throw in a little bit of green here. I like to vary the colors. I'm a big color variegation guy.
Liquid is an oil medium made by Winsor Newton. It helps the paint spread on. If you have paint that's a little bit stiff, you can add a touch to it, and it'll make it more buttery. And it also tends to dry a touch faster and with a slight sheen to it.
Well, the sheen is not really good for the camera, but it does add a freshness to your paint, almost as if it were varnished.
Yes, especially for those darker, kind of dead colors like burnt sienna and burnt umber.
I first have to put the darks in there. I'm going to use some purple. In this case, I use Winsor violet, or what is dioxazine purple it's called also. I'll put a little bit of yellow ochre to it. And so go one more value darker. That's working. Don't put spots. Don't do that like this and then over here, because the viewers don't appreciate hopscotching. They want their eye to flow. That doesn't mean you want to fill it all up, but there should be like little small connections in between.
Yes, and liquid is different than your solvent or your thinner. Totally different. There are several mediums. One is liquid. There are others made by Gamblin. There are all kinds of different mediums. And many of them do very similar things and have a different quality to them. You'll have to try them to figure out which one you like. I like Galkid Light. It kind of gives you a little bit of body, and liquid does too for your brush strokes, so that your brush strokes don't disappear.
It's also important that don't put your branches in as if like they're like popsicle sticks. Give them a little bit of a gnarled kind of look. Go right into the darks. Don't put your branches on top of your highlights. Check your negative space in between. Now, doesn't that really help you, some of you that have never taken my classes, to think in terms of creating the 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 11:10, and then think about the roller coaster effect and then the different sides of the tree? I'm sure that's going to give you a lot of answers. So I'm taking advantage also of these darker areas to put this in.
How do you feel about black tree trunks and branches?
Well, they do exist, but you don't need to go that dark. In general, you should never go anything that's too dark that you can't read the actual hue that you're putting on there. My camera magnifies a little bit more of the darkness.
It looks like you're achieving nice thin branches. What do you do if you're having problems getting that?
That's why I use, you want to hold on to a new acrylics brush that you only dedicate for branches and tap them in. I gave up trying to use riggers and things like that because they're just too clumsy to work with. This works the best for me.
You just put a short little stubby thing in there. Why'd you do that?
Where was that? Oh, here? Oh, it just adds character instead, because we have a parallel line there. And we don't want parallel lines. We want add character. You can put knot holes and broken off branches like that stick out. Try to build a story. Maybe a demo.
I've also seen you push the corresponding or the paint next to it to get thinner branches.
Yeah, if you go too thick, let's say if I want to make this, I nailed it, but if I want to make the branch thinner, I just borrow this color here, impregnate my brush, and I push into it, and I can make it hairline thin.
Are there any clues on these branches? The more gnarly, the better?
Take advantage of the large gaps to put them in. You can get sort of busy at the bottom third. That's the eye level. The second third, taper off, and basically you don't need anything on top. And I'm going to give you a good illustration in a minute. I think we could put a few highlights on that too.
Sarah's asking, can you repeat the 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock process for those who couldn't get on the first part of the program?
It's like magic, right? So when I do my brush stroke, just imagine that you're painting on a clock. See, we always get new people on YouTube because my students already know this. So you create little clumps that go, here, I'll do another one over here. So you go, so let's say I'm going to do a bush. Let's do a reddish bush now for change. Okay, so you go like that. You, like little inch strokes going to the clock. 12, 1, 2, 3, 11, 10. And pretty quickly you can build a tree, because that's how the branches grow. They grow to the sides. So your brush should emulate the way things grow. And you can just go like that. Pretty much, and then you create another clump over here. And pretty much you get this result here. By the way, if you're enjoying what you're seeing and you think you can learn, there's a class starting day after tomorrow, Saturday, about townscapes. And there will be foliage in that too. Especially the first one, that's oils, is going to have a lot of foliage with flowers. So you again get to practice and repeat this. I'm going to put a few highlights on that, and then we move into the watercolor.
Gregory is asking, how do you paint trees in flower, like in the springtime?
You mean that? Well, that we're going to see on what do you call it, on Saturday. But I can do a quick demo of like a bougainvillea if you want. That's what you're asking for, right?
No, like a flowering apple tree or that sort of thing.
Oh, like the cherry blossoms and all that?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Again, you're back to the same boat where you want to keep your form completely different. Don't pay attention to a shape that you see in a reference photo. Modify it. quite a bit. And there's a point in time where you don't even have to look at the tree anymore. You just create your own shapes, and then you become pretty free at it. All right, so I think that sort of like does our cottonwood. I think we're doing well with time.
I think it's important that we stress that for each of Joe's paint-alongs, which is the one coming up on Saturday, there are 3 classes included in that one purchase, and there are 3 different mediums that are used. One is oil, one is pastels, and one is watercolor. And during each class, we give out pointers, tons of pointers on composition, color harmony, that sort of thing. But we also talk about how to use the medium and how to fix it.
Correct. Well, thanks a lot, Jude. It's a big help to remind me about this.
For us to show Kathleen how to do a correction on each of these little drills that Joe is showing us today, it takes a lot of time. But in his classes, his webinar classes coming up, which are extremely reasonable because you're getting 3 classes, at least 5 hours each, it is a ton of information. A ton of information.
Yeah, you're going to fill up a notebook. Okay, so I put there a step-by-step for you. You might want to take a screenshot of it, whatever. So I talked about drawing the contour. I didn't draw it first. That's another possibility. You can just go in and, one way or another, either you draw it in or you use the technique that I use with the paper towel and just create the form very quickly. That's going to really help you. I would really encourage you to do that. Just take some paper towel, put some burnt sienna on it, and just go in there, and you're going to say, wow, that's materializing very quickly, rather than just a small brush trying to figure it out. So anyway, the trick is, like I said, you want to have this, pretend this is a roller coaster in a theme park. That's very important. Even if it has little individual, don't take that too literally, because you're not thinking about the tracks. You still want these little things protruding out that gives that sense of airiness and looseness to your tree. So don't make it, completely round. You can see these little protrusions, like little Greek islands. So you do that. Go like this, right? That's
Joe, if you're drawing something, dear, we can't see it because your notes are on top of it.
Okay, so I was just emphasizing this, that you just want to create that roller coaster effect. And don't forget to leave these little guys up there, those little separate leaves, because that gives that tree a sense of airiness and looseness. I know that I can't emphasize that too much. It just looks really great when you do that. So block in your estimated mid value. Okay, that's the next step too. Make gradual and subtle changes in the color. So there's little touches of orange, and I put maybe a little bit of green in there. Determine the light source. So obviously most artists have the light source come from about here, and that's my dark side. You don't have to put a lot of darks in, but what is important is to always 3D. Well, not always, but 3D your trees, especially if they're close up. 3D them. I must emphasize that tremendously. 3D. Because photographs will not show you that. They don't show you.
Your text is covering it again, Joe.
Yeah. Photographs don't show you the 3D image. You have to exaggerate that. Or even in nature. An example of that would be, let's see. Bring this up.
So what you're saying basically is decide where the light source is and use that as your highlights and underneath as your darks.
Your 3Ding aspect, yes. So you can see here that you don't have that predominant dark side to it. It's like scattered everywhere. I mean, the photograph, that's quite acceptable, but once we're painting and you put it on like that, it's going to look too flat, like two-dimensional. And so we need to go the extra mile and create a round part of it, and not just sporadically put darks everywhere, but actually try to put them on the contour like I just did with this tree here. Okay. Add touches of highlights if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to give it a little bit of a punch. Add tree trunks only in the dark areas. Yep, so over here, I took advantage of that little dark that I put in there, and I put the tree trunk right into that. Never put them over the highlights because that would be like the spokes of an umbrella, a broken umbrella where they're sticking right out of the plastic. You don't want that. Either at the block-in stage or the last step, you may add sky gaps in darker areas. Yeah, you can do that too. I'll do that for you here. And then low detail at the bottom. You can put more individual leaves and things here. The second half start to taper off, and then you hardly need anything up there. So
Talk to us about sky gaps.
yeah, I'm going to put some in right now.
Okay.
Normally, a photograph will have many, many small little sky holes to them. Yeah, you can see it here. But what happens is that becomes a clutter in a painting. All these over here. Ordered. See all those little holes there? And so what you don't want is to give the viewer, you got to take the real idea of realism completely out of your painting and create symbols that are attractive. It's a new language. So it's better to concentrate, instead of having 10 little sky holes, put maybe 2, maybe 1 bigger sky gap and give that a sense that the birds can fly through comfortably. So going back to what I had here, I can just take my brush and add, let's say, cerulean blue, whatever you want to use for it. And just pop those in like, I like to just dab it like that, and that does the job. So really reduce those quite a bit.
Any particular notes on the shape and size?
No, as long as you're not cloning them. What is important, though, that if you're going to put the darker sky in this tree that's darker, so if I take this exact value here and I mix it in here, it's going to pop out more. Why? Because it's got surrounding dark contrast. So this sky hole here has to be the same value optically, not physically, but optically as your sky. You can see that pretty easily. Once you put in there, it's going to jump out at you. Okay, shall we do a watercolor? You guys want to see more? Let's do some watercolors. I love trees and watercolors. Wow.
Do you need to do a setup yet?
Oh, I'm ready to go.
Oh, okay.
Pretty
Cool.
much.
Okay.
You know me, Jude.
How many other pros do you know do these little Aegean Island additions to their trees?
Now, I've always, during my classes, I always have problems with students overworking their foliage. So I came up with a system. What happens is that they're looking at the photograph and they see a lot of broken up little areas. So I found an easier system where I just say, pretend you're putting potato chips on it. And each potato chip is a clump that goes towards the clock that we talked about. Too bad I can't eat these. Now, if you get too busy and you start doing this, then your tree is going to look overworked. So keep it simple. Big potato chips. Alrighty, and I'll leave the rest for myself. Into the garbage it goes. All right, watercolor. Zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah, Julie, thanks. We have told others that the principles are the same regardless of what medium you're doing or what style or what form of painting you're making. It's all the same. They are applicable to all things.
Absolutely.
And that's why we encourage you, when you purchase a class, watch all three, because the photos are different. Some things may not come out with the first one that may come out on the second. Plus, you'll get to sit and chat with us. We enjoy that. And you'll have more time to present your questions.
Okay,
Oh, Vanessa, oils are so much fun. Oils are so much fun. You need to try them. I'll put a few suggestions in here, but just join us. We will start teaching you how to use them.
okay, so this I do want to use the pencil. But the trick is, don't create a solid line with the pencil. Just go like that. Skip it. You want to feel the form rather than see it. I'll put another one adjacent to it. So again, I want to make sure that the two sides are completely different. Watercolor. Doing foliage in watercolor is so much fun because it's, when you do it, sorry if I say it the right way, wow, they really shine. They have a lot of color and light in them. Okay, so I'm looking at the two different sides. We got our roller coaster in there. So let's flood it with the, I got to get rid of my mineral spirits because I've taken my watercolor brushes and dipped it right in there. Oof. You can imagine what that's like.
Total mess.
Yes.
Claudia, you rejuvenate dried watercolor pigments with the spray bottle. Just plain old water. Look at this outline. Let's talk a little bit about your contour, Joe. Your dippity-doos and the wonderful roller coaster lines.
That's all you have to think about. You're thinking about the theme park roller coaster. Okay, now, you want, for watercolor, you definitely want to have step by step. Step number one is you spot wet, and you're going to see why. So you spot wet the contour. And inside as well. Here and there. I'll explain why later. It's going to create a lovely effect. I think I got it. Putting my ear on the table practically so I can see where I'm doing this. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take, we're going to make this one into like that orange tree too, because I love those colors. They're so cheerful. So I'm going to take some raw sienna, some cadmium yellow,
Is this rough paper or cold press?
it's cold press. Rough, you can do a better job. So here we're going to do the same thing. I'm grabbing my brush all the way from the back, and we're going to do our clumpy things. Go a little bit lighter on this. Push towards the 12 o'clock. Drag the brush so it breaks up. Let's change the color a little bit. You can work randomly. It's even better if you do. You don't stay in one spot. You don't start duplicating forms if you do that. on, I'm just going to make a little adjustment here to the filter. Randomly is even better. See, this is already about an inch, so I have to do basically just tap and drag it a little bit. Throw a little bit of green in there for variance.
Vanessa, was it Vanessa? No, it was, let's see. Kathleen, yes, that's a very interesting association of the similarity between clouds and trees. But yes, I would say it is a good association. They both have a graceful line on the top of them.
When you design it that way. The idea, remember, it's not a matter of copying what you see, it's a matter of you designing it to have that graceful line.
And it's a matter of they have a highlight typically and a mother color and a low light. So yeah, I'd see that. I say there are quite a few similarities, and we like to do the little detached clouds similar to the floaties that we call it in trees. So yeah, I think that's a great association.
Yeah, but be careful though, because when you're going to have a lot of deciduous trees and you have cumulus clouds, in a certain way they're competing. So it's better to have a simplified sky with these kind of trees in full bloom, or cumulus clouds and trees from a different perspective, maybe winter trees, or so they don't compete in the sky in the form. That's how close they are, because they're almost twins.
Yeah, Patrick, Joe usually adds his background in watercolor after he paints the trees, or unless the sky is very light, he'll just put a wash in the background with darker trees on top.
Well, right now I'm not worried about a sky, right?
No, I'm just talking, he asked the question, so it's like you can go both ways. It really depends in watercolor your values.
What does he mean by both ways? The brushwork?
No, he's asking when do you put the background in watercolor trees?
Well, here we're working
from it both ways.
Yeah, here we're working from the highlight, obviously. We'll change that bush a little bit. Okay. So now what we're getting
Sarah.
is we have some bleeding here. So whatever bleeds is telling you that it's going behind, so it recedes. And whatever is hard-edged is giving you a message that it's coming forward. Alrighty?
Sarah, yes, there are several recommendations for painting wintry trees without any leaves. I don't know if it will be done in this demo, but in the classes
we can.
Oh, you are?
No, if they want
okay.
it. I want them to feel that they can request.
Okay, so wintry trees is a request without any leaves.
Yeah, they're really nice to. I'll do it in watercolor. Okay, so I'm not going to put the darks in yet because it's still too soaking wet. But, well, actually, I should.
Were you painting on the belly of your brush, on the side?
I sort of bend it in and I go like that sometimes. And now I'm very strange because I use a square brush. Most artists like to use a round brush. Yeah, that works too. Like if you take a round brush like this on rough paper, it works even better. I'll show you. Like sort of
like that a 3/4 inch brush you're using?
This is like a pastel. you hand it like pastels. So you can break up, you make it nice and round, and just by using the belly of the brush. In fact, I'll just do a little demo now. And then break up the paint. Of course, I didn't do the lost and found edges, so the problem with that is everything becomes hard edged, and you don't want that. You want some bleeding in there. So if you forget to do that, just hit this with water randomly, especially on the side that's not facing into the painting. Or it all depends. If you have a hard edged barn here, then you want to soften this so they don't compete. That's a new one, Jude.
I'm sorry, Joe, I missed that. Do you mind restating it?
You can hit it with water later, but if you have like a hard-edged barn here, you don't want to have a hard-edged tree.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So kind of you're uniting the barn and the tree with that softer edge almost.
Or they don't compete, and then you put the hard edges elsewhere. I'm getting a little lucky back. That is a new tidbit to Joe's past students. That's a new little tidbit we hadn't heard before. Yeah.
See, and that's why we all come back. We all learn these new little tidbits during the class. There is always something new.
And I wait like 13 years to tell you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Some of us have been with Joe a long time.
Oh, it just stands to reason that you don't want to have an hard edge on a tree next to a hard edge on a barn. Because it sort of like compromises which one goes first.
Yeah, which one is in front of the other almost. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I was using this brush. What am I doing? I was trying to demonstrate this brush here.
Look at how he's pushing against the bristles. And it's not using the tip. He's using that whole entire brush. Yeah, Jay, nuggets, you're right. Julie says, all the time we learn something new. It's good for our old brains, Julie. My old brain.
Oh, I don't know if I said this. I went to, my wife works for the YMCA, so she went to a conference to promote the YMCA with some very well-known doctors with dementia. And the panel was asking questions, so I put my hand up and I said, what about creativity? You talk about exercise and food and avoid loneliness and to dampen or decrease or even avoid dementia. What about creativity? And they were very much in favor of, oh yeah, painting and things like that keeps your mind active and it's good for as you age.
Yeah, it gives us a reason to get up some days. Really, it does.
So this has sort of like started to harden. So I'm going to do some...
Mike says you better hurry up. He's not sure he'll live another 13 years.
That's Mike, right? Mike would say something like that.
Yeah. Mike, we love you.
I don't even have to read. I know who said it.
Okay, so don't judge these blobs on this paper till we put in the tree trunks.
Yeah, you'll see. The whole thing will start to come together.
And a lot of times Joel just use that green color or a similar warm color as his tree trunks. He doesn't want it just sticking out. Alan, pushing against the bristle. Yeah. Well, that's what you want. You want those wonderful little separate leaves, and that you don't want to make it look like it's preconceived. You want the brush to do the work for you.
Yeah.
That's why you want to push against that brush. So maybe you have one brush that is your favorite tree brush, Alan.
Yeah, I like the word that you used. You don't want it preconceived. That's good.
Yeah, a lot of the pros, they rely on their brush to do the happy accidents. And that's why Joe suggests drills. You know, we have a show coming up, so we take out those big canvases, and guess what happens? We tighten up. But if you're doing a drill and you do it enough times, you won't.
Well, I'm doing a drill now.
I know. Joe knows I hate drills. But I do them. I do them. And one thing he forgot to mention is charcoal is wonderful for tree shapes.
Yeah.
You take a piece and you do it on its side. It is just wonderful for it. And you can smudge it easy and keep a hard, sharp edge. It's really great. Give it a try. And the tree shapes that you enjoy, make sure you spray them and put them up in your studio because you can use those shapes again and again in your paintings.
So I'm taking advantage that this one, you want it where it's starting to dry so you get some soft edges that are runny. The runny eggs versus, same thing happens eggs. You put that's a good analogy. You put a fried egg in a pan, some of it gets like dissolves right in there and the other parts are hard edged. It's sort of like that. So again, I'm building up the darks, sort of like connecting them to a point, like visually connect them. And, watercolor has a mind of its own, so it's going to do whatever it wants in a sense. That's fine. Just let it do its work.
The other thing we should mention is the paint-alongs and the one-day courses that Joe gives. They are directed to all levels. We try to hit all levels because Joe has many students who have been with him for quite some time and they've advanced. They've quickly advanced, they've been selling their work. So if you're new to Joe and you're new to painting, we'll work with you. It takes time, but you've got to do your work as well. It takes a lot of brush mileage.
Yeah, I do that. I assign, like for newbies, I say, this is a little bit too complicated maybe. Just do that one area and practice that. That's important. Yeah, by the way, guys, sign up at my website. Can you type it in there, someone? Improve my
painting. I've been putting it in there, Joe.
We can do it several times. ImproveMyPaintings.com. It's very easy to remember. ImproveMyPaintings, plural.com. If you're also signed up at Artist Network, we more or less send the same messages. And sign up at my newsletter so that at the end of the class you will get not today, but you'll get in the future, you'll get the next course promoting what's coming up and what it's all about. And visit artistnetwork.com or it's easier to see the coming up course on my website because it's right on the front page. ImproveMyPaintings.com and click on, just scroll down and you're going to see the next course about the townscapes. Okay, so this is sort of like cooked, and right now I can see a head. Right now this doesn't look really good. It looks yucky because there's no form to it. But wait until I actually put the branches in and everything, and you will see this whole thing come to life. And I do a little bit of negative painting, and you'll see. Voila.
When you were doing the darks in there, were you painting wet on dry or wet on wet?
I that's the whole trick. It's to let it go halfway. Some of it starts to dry. If you're a little bit slow, what you can do is wait for it to dry and go back and spot wet it again and then put your negative painting. So what's going to happen is you're going to get a hard edge here and then a bleeding edge. Bleeding edge and hard edge. Viewers appreciate that very much. It's called, I can't get into all the information I can give you, but it's called the principle of contrasts. And one of those is called, by the way, principle of contrast is 10 points that will completely revolutionize your artwork. Once you name them and you put it down pat, I teach those all the time. I keep bringing it up, and it really makes a big difference of your artwork. So anyway, one of the principle of contrast is vary in color every 2 inches or so. That's one. And another one is, as you can see, I'm also varying here, soft versus hard edges. So those are two of them on the list. Now, when you have a sky gap, don't go to the middle, go to the side. Now watch how this is going to come to life. It's incredible how that works. Take advantage of the sky gaps.
If you are on Joe's, are a member of our paint-alongs or the breakthroughs, and you do a painting, you are allowed to paint what Joe is painting as long as you purchase that workshop. And when you do purchase it, we give you the ability to have Joe critique it by posting your work on his Facebook page. I've put it in there. I'll put it in there again. You need to request membership, but there are separate albums for each paint-along, and Joe goes through on the last Saturday and critiques the ones that are in the album.
And Jude, sell.
You are allowed to sell them, and let me tell you, they sell. I can tell you from many, many times they sell. Plus, you will learn composition techniques where you take your own photograph and you know how to change it to make it a better composition.
Okay, so here's the trick. You see that dark there? Put your branch in there, but don't put too long. Am I right? Did the tree come to life the moment I put those branches in? I'm going to do some negative painting in here. See, there it is. Let's crop it a little. It's a little bit too rectangular, but if we go like that, that works as well. Okay, so we're going to do some negative painting now, just to bring out more. You're going to like this. And I'm going to start the negative painting at the bottom third, and not so much up here, but over here. It just creates that kind of... a lot of artists leave this out, but for me it creates a lot of technique, design, abstract designs. You can get those nice, delicious hard edges here and there, like that, so you can see how that's maturing.
Sarah, so Joe is mixing raw sienna and a permanent yellow with the blues. Sometimes he'll add a touch of red to tone it down a little bit. He's trying to get those martini olive greens.
Well, and here this is like a cottonwood tree.
In the fall, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are your ochres. And I think he has a touch of permanent rose in there, some oranges.
So look how nicely I can bring out the foliage at the eye level by negative painting. You can even do that. The idea is the principal contrast is busy versus simple. Busy versus simple. So again, we're back to the potato chip analogy, where you want to have big clumps of ballooning effects in your paintings. And then you have areas that are small. So these are the crumpled potato chips. Those are the larger ones. They come in all different sizes.
So you're
So don't
basically
invade.
saying you want some quiet areas and
Yeah.
you want some busier and texture areas.
Yeah, that becomes, again, the principal contrast means busy versus simple, juxtaposed. So this looks good because you don't have it here. This looks good because you don't have it there. If I start that same technique and go all the way up, I can guarantee you you're not going to like it because you've lost that principal contrast. It keeps doing the same thing. So here I'm going to do negative painting. Bring out the branches. Just a little bit darker than that. And again, you stop. You don't have to go all the way. Again, it's principle of contrasts. That's a huge one, isn't it?
Yeah, not many pros mention it at all. In fact, I don't think I've heard anyone mention it.
They do it, but they're not saying it consciously.
Oh, someone asked earlier what type of palette you're using here with your
My favorite one is the porcelain palette, but it's too heavy to take for workshops, but it's good for stationery in your studio. This is not the one, but I do like to use it.
Is there a manufacturer of that porcelain guy?
John, which one is it? You know what? That's someone would know that there. The porcelain one, I think I bought it at Cheap Joe's. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Long time ago. You can Google it. So here I'm going to go on the darker areas here. It's a little bit darker now because it's in accordance to how dark your original one is. Again, negative painting in there. Look at that neat effect, and I'm leaving margin to put a branch there. See, I can get away with all that negative painting in there and create the little holes and stuff, but as soon as you go higher up, the second, third, taper off.
Is your tree form wet now or dry?
It's dry now. So you go that third there, you can get busy. The second, third, taper off. This has to be quite simple. So I'm going to write that in here. Simple, taper off. Sorry about the writing. And busy if you wish at the eye level.
What do you mean by busy?
Well,
what
lots of visual information. So I'm creating all little kinds of little individual leaf clusters and stuff in there. Look how lovely that looks. And then if I do that everywhere, I've lost my principle of contrast. I can do a little bit here, but be conscious that you're going to lose the beauty of it when you start repeating it too many times.
Yeah, take a screenshot of that. That's important. Not many of us remember this little tip.
You got to leave those huge clusters.
Yeah, we need that quiet here and there.
Yeah, that's the principle of contrast. Okay, I think I'm going to stop right about there. This one's going to probably look pretty good too. So we're going to go. Oh, see, I even left that little thing on purpose. So when you do the little dry brush effect, when you're breaking up the paint, you take advantage of that, put your tree branch in there and stop and let that grow over it. Like it's part of the, there's a little branch there. Now, if you got a sky gap there, do it in the 1/3, not down the middle. You can use a sponge, but it's a little bit fake because it's too repetitive. I do have a video where you can do it with a sponge, but that would like a little trick video to bring people in. But if you do it right, if you leave a lot of the large areas, but I prefer for people to actually draw things in and use these techniques of negative painting. But if it's for crafts and fun, sure, you can do that. There's a video called Painting Trees with the Easy Way with a sea sponge. So again, I left
was that a YouTube, Joe?
Yeah. So again, I left these there's gaps here so I could exploit them and put the branches in. And we can maybe do this.
Do you want to talk about the size of your tree trunk starting at the base going up?
Yeah, obviously you're going to have more support here, so it should be larger at the bottom, and then as you go towards the top, it gets thinner and thinner until it becomes a twig. Oh, this little guy came out pretty good.
I noticed on your tree on the right that some of the branches are touching the ground, some of the leaves.
Yeah, yeah. Doesn't look like it's just floating. That's fine.
I know many artists have the skirts of the trees, and when they do a group, all starting kind of at the same place, at the same height.
They do?
Yeah, not you, but I said many do. So
Well,
you
they're
want to
not.
vary.
Well, and some of you are new. When have you ever heard an instructor say, for a shape to work, take an imaginary line down the middle and compare both sides and make sure that one side is different than the other? Where have you seen that or heard that? So again, imaginary line down the middle. This is side A and this is side B. And make sure you have two different sides. Right? Okay, so let's put our step-by-step up here. I'll do the quick winter tree. We can call it a day. We don't want to make these too long. So draw the contour with a graceful line, roller coaster line. Make each half of the shape noticeably different, which we have here. Block in your estimate of the main mid-value of the form. Make gradual and subtle changes in the colors. Determine the light source. Negative paint the dark areas. Add tree trunks only in the dark areas. Wait, that's oils. I'm sorry. I got the oil one up there, folks. Oh, let me see. I think I inverted them. Oops, let me step by step. Okay, let me pull in the watercolor one. Okay, so somehow they got mixed up. I'm so sorry.
Oh, so we're still seeing oil.
Yeah, wait, maybe. I don't know how they got there. Okay, anyway, it's step number 1. We spot wet. Here, I'll write that down for you. So step 1, spot wet. Step 2, number 2, lay in the highlights, and let areas bleed.
I'm typing it in the chat, Joe. So if you just say it, I'll type it.
All right. The next one is spot wet. Let highlights, let areas bleed. Leave gaps for the branches that go in later on. Yeah, okay. So, where did I... Okay. Then what's the next one? Yeah, then after that, determine what side's going to be dark. And start adding the dark and let areas bleed back and forth. So that would be 3. Add darks. Lost and found edges. And found edges. You know what I'll do? If you register for the next class for Saturday, I'll take screenshots of my demo and I'll add step number 1, step number 2, and step number 3 for you. So it's all nice and professional, like a little booklet. All right? How's that sound? I'm going to put that into the next course. And then add branches, right? Add branches. Remember, you can get busy here and then leave large flat areas. Add the branches. Or just, just replay the YouTube video. Make sure that you don't go too dark here because then it looks yucky. I mean, I shouldn't be using that. It's not a very professional term, but it just came out spontaneously. I can probably just negative paint in a little bit more here because it's a darker tree.
You have 2 requests, Joe. One's for a winter tree and one's for an evergreen.
Well, we only have so much time. All right, let's do the winter tree. I'll see if I can pop it in real fast. I hate to say no. Okay. Again, I always believe in spot wetting. So we're going to go ahead and even some of those branches can bleed a little bit. Why not? It doesn't look so rigid. Let me pull out a little reference here.
And a blooming tree. A blooming tree is very similar to what Joe is painted earlier. I know that some blooming trees are more like winter tree shapes with a few blooms on them, and others, like an apple tree, are all blossoms. So it really depends on the actual tree you want to show. Marianne is asking, how do you know how much water to put on your brush?
That comes with experience, hit and miss. That's just like you make coffee and things like that. You do it several times and you'll get the hang of it. All right. Okay. By the way, we have posters posting stuff, right? I think they do have the step-by-steps there.
I added the step-by-steps.
Okay.
It's all under my name.
Oh, perfect.
And yeah, we do want to thank our posting team. We've got Cindy, Diane, and Julie. Am I missing anyone? I see Jay here. I don't know that Jay was posting, but we have a whole team during Joe's classes that will put his principal definitions up. And that's the way that we all learn these principles. They just start to become part of you.
Hey, Cindy, can you check your email for a second, dear? Okay, so I'm going to start with the what do you call it? The winter tree. The trick is start from the bottom up and start to divide. Okay, here we go. Or you can start like this on a branch like that and go. Make sure you don't make it too snaky. Now the trick is you want this to break up. So flick your brush very quickly so that it breaks up. Even to the point where you can hear I got my brush in my mouth. You don't want to have so many solid lines, so try to do this. That gives that kind of barky feeling. In fact, I should have done it here more than I will now.
Cindy's asking what watercolor banner?
The banner, this one here.
You mean the notes, maybe?
Yeah. She was nice
The
enough.
watercolor notes.
She actually corrected it for me, and then somehow I put the names together. And she probably has the pristine one. I'll just put it up there. Okay, so this is
Looking
important.
for the watercolor notes, Cindy.
Okay, this, right? Look. Bet you haven't seen this before. And then you quickly flicker. Grab it at the tip and flick the brush. Make it nice and thin. Have you seen that before? Oops, I'm a little bit boasting now.
I like how you're getting that broken up paint that is imitating bark very easily.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's show off the students. What does Joe say about branches? How many branches should we put on a tree? What has he taught us? Cindy says, give her a sec. Come on, Joe students, show us what we've learned.
Show off.
Yeah, show off what you know.
And
He's
again,
using
again
liner
you want two different sides to that tree, okay? So put more weight on one side, preferably the side that goes into the painting. It depends how far you want to go. But yeah, you want all that broken.
Sue says no limit as long as they're fine, they're thin, small, and what else, Sue?
Now, why am I putting these on? Why would I put that one on there?
Not a dark value. You want to watch your values on these small, thin little branches.
Oops, this one leaning the same angle. That was a mistake.
Yep, Sharon, follow the clock and as many as you want. Right, Brenda? 12, 1, 2, 12, 11, 10. You can even go down to 9 and 3. But you want to keep them thin and of a light value.
Okay, so what I did at the very beginning, I started with the large, think of this as a LA freeway of 7 lanes. A big one over here, and then I started getting thinner and thinner and thinner until it became a little twig. So that would be, the analogy would be you're going down the freeway in California, you're exiting the city, you're going onto the freeway, now you take a country road, and off the country road you take a dirt road, you get out to walk with your dog, and now you're on a trail. But it all started from the very beginning from the freeway. So you go thicker to thinner, and that becomes my axis. So if you follow any tree trunk starting at 6 o'clock, and you follow it all the way up, that same branch that started at 6 o'clock will end up at 12 o'clock. That gives you your axis, A-X-I-S, which means that from here on, your branches are going to go towards the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And from the other side of the axis, you have 11 axis is A-X-I-S. 10, 9, and even if you want to, 8 o'clock. Make sure you have more weight on one side than the other. Again, we're looking at the two different sides. And the weight side should be facing in towards the painting, not that way because it becomes distracting. So if you're going to put your barn here or whatever you're going to put here, a lake, put all your tree branches that way, and you can use them as pointers. In other words, they can point to the cap of a mountain, for example, and you can sort of like direct the viewer to do that. So the secret here at this was that I wanted to teach you was the broken up effect that you saw. That's important.
On that winter tree now, would you add a few blossoms on it to show that spring is coming?
Yeah, you can add leaves to it if you want to.
Or blossoms?
Well, it's watercolor. This part's it's got to be darker.
Well, you could use a pinky tone. But you don't want to, for some trees, they are, the branches, the flowers are small and scattered on like a wintry tree.
Depends how far you want to go with all this. So this is 2 weeks earlier than what I had. Again, you have the principle of contrasts. We got large format, mid-size, and then some of the smaller clusters. Again, some potato chips are crumpled, some are pristine out of the bag. Alrighty. All right, I'll do the evergreen tree and then we call it a day. I can't say no to my students.
Yeah, that's why his classes sometimes.
Well, normally the YouTube videos are supposed to be done sort of relatively fast because people see a large video and then they lose interest. Say, oh, I'm not going to watch 3 hours or 2 hours. Okay, so that I would like. I'm going to draw. Well, I don't have to draw it actually. I can just do it, pop it right in there. So well, again, the evergreen tree. The problem is you got too many boughs that are they're protruding too much. You definitely don't want to put those in. I'll just go for it. You know me. So we're going to use. Again, always in my book, we're going to do lost and found edges. Inside and out. Oh.
On our Saturday paint-alongs, Joe provides us photo references, and many times he'll take several photos and combine them into what we call a Frankenstein photo. And then he provides his drawing. So you are all set to go. As you can watch along on Saturdays and participate in the chat and take notes. And then during the next week, you can paint it on your own. You can watch the video and stop it and paint along. It is very easy to follow along.
All right. Here's the... I'm going to go back. Remember I said to spot wet it? When you spot wet it, you get this. That part's lighter, and that part's a little bit darker. That means the tree is bulging forward. It happens accidentally. Okay? So that's a typical example. Here too, you can see that part here is bulging. It's lighter, and this is darker. And I don't think I added that dark, I'm not sure. But anyway, it would happen naturally that comes forward. Okie doke. Okay, so we're going to spot wet the evergreen tree. Oh, that was supposed to be water, sorry. Live class. Then I'm going to put my mixture in here. I'm going to pretty much gray it down. They're like an olive, martini olive too. So here's the secret to these guys. Jabbing with the tip. I already got one. It's already there.
Jillian, when you sign up, you not only Joe not only tells you what supplies he'll be using. That's part of the information under your reference materials on Artist Network. But you'll get the photos he used to combine if there's more than one. You get a drawing that you can download or reproduce at different sizes. And you also get all of Joe's principles and their definitions.
Jude, we left
There's
out.
so much.
Jude, we left something out that's really important. How expensive?
What?
How expensive the courses are.
I'm going to let the students tell us how expensive they are. They've already told they've already put their comments in earlier
I'm just joking.
about how
Guys,
reasonable.
$26.99 American for 15 hours of class divided in 3 Saturdays. Not even $10 per class.
Now, it
$26.99.
probably seems way too reasonable for a pro to take a Saturday and only charge that amount.
Hold on.
But
Hold on. Remember I said that I work for Artist Network. Artist Network is the leader in fine art education. Look how many subscribers are under their web right there on your YouTube video. 318,000. That's accumulation of decades. The reason why we can offer that price is because we have hundreds of students. That's why. Whereas other people have to work with maybe a volume of 10, so they have to go to the hundreds. Well, we got bulk. And the good thing is that you don't have to be, everybody can look over my shoulder. Well, that turned out to be a pretty nice evergreen tree to me.
now look at that evergreen tree. You don't see the zigzag lines when you look at an evergreen, a young evergreen tree. You don't see that. We are not painting what we see. We are painting what we know. We know we need 2 different sides. He's using his brush to its advantage, and he's getting those beautiful abstract shapes just by leaning that little brush a teeny bit.
That's one of the best evergreen trees I've done.
It's
You know
great.
why? Because the 2 sides are so different, and I got just the bleeding that I wanted. So I got that little bleeding there, over here. We have some boughs over here. The trick is reduce your boughs, but then put some solid areas. I know that this does not coincide with a real looking tree, and it's not supposed to. You're supposed to create landscape symbols that represent the object in a much more beautiful way. So that's supposed to represent an evergreen tree, even though you probably won't find one, or once in a blue moon, once in an eclipse, you'll find something like that.
What's in the eclipse? I like
Yeah,
that.
I'm pretty close by, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
A
that's
little
cool.
baby one over here.
Thanks, Sharon. And the chat is fun. We get to know each other through the chat. We have a lot of fun. You can also join Joe's Facebook page and post your paintings and ask questions. The chat, because many of the students have been with Joe so long, they are just houses of information, and they love sharing what they know. What brand are you using of your brush? Anne wants to know.
This is a
Princeton or-
Scepter Gold.
By who?
By Winsor Newton. So hold on, I'm going to put the banner up for you now.
Thanks, Pam. So you not only are you getting Joe, but you're getting a whole team with Joe. You're getting me, who will read every little bit of chat and make sure that your question or comment gets answered. And we also have the team our posting team, who goes through the principles, as Cindy Mack just did in the chat, on symbols, and presents the definition. We have a whole team. Oh, and not to forget the Purple Club, Cindy Wilson. We have a club that loves purple. We have to put purple in almost every painting. You guys are great.
Okay, here's the step-by-step of watercolor. So let's recap that and we're done. So we did draw the contour. Put this over. Draw the contour. Let's use this one as a graceful line. Right? You can see that there. Make each half of the shape noticeably different. correct? Because here I have some protrusions and here I don't. Like if I were to mirror this, you can tell that I flipped it. Not like that tree that we did earlier. Spot wet inside, as well as the contour. Allow water to seep into the paper for a few minutes. I rushed it, but you can allow it a little bit longer. Go get yourself a cup of coffee. Block in the highlights of the form, right? Make gradual and subtle changes in the colors. Next, add the darker value, which was this one here. Over here. Negative paint in the darkest values. So I went in here later on at the bottom and I started to put in a few accents, just like it did over here. Add the tree trunks in the dark areas. Or there's a technique where you can lift them out as well. If you want to put like white kind of birch tree trunks, you can do that too by lifting them out. So I'll just show you what we're going to get for next course, and we can call it a day. I'll put here. Prove my. There we go. This is my website. You can see my paintings here, by the way. Okay, so that's a little slideshow of my paintings. Let me get rid of this. Oils, watercolors, pastels, you name it. Then you scroll down. I got to take that course out. And we got Paint Along Master Painting Captivated Townscapes right on my front page. That's the first reference photo. Lots of flowers on that one. I give you templates. In other words, the drawing's already done. You can either print it out and trace it over your canvas paper, whatever, or freehand it by using a grid. Then that's a little, like a French town scene with flowers. And this beauty over here, which is, that's Italy on the coast. And pastels. So, as I said, there's their price, $26.99. And if you want, you can click on this and join us on Facebook. So we can, Carol's standing by that she can authorize you to come in. Just say you took the YouTube demo today. So you have a direct access. She doesn't have to check, give you all the questions and all that. Just because we keep it somewhat private. We don't want to bring everybody in because you never know what you're going to get. So we keep it monitored. Okay, so I'm so glad that you showed up today, everybody, and don't forget to promote this video with your friends. Remember, it stays on YouTube as long as it wants to. So I'll see you day after tomorrow. What's that?
And you have your courses set up through August already on Artist Network.
All the way up to August, yeah.
So there's a whole variety of these coming at us. It'll be wonderful. Wonderful paint-alongs.
So if there aren't any more questions, we will call it a day. No?
Yes, Sarah, that is one of the things of how to simplify and what is important to put as part of your painting. Yes, that is something we do cover.
Okay, folks. Well, thank you so much. I'll see you day after tomorrow. Have a nice